Good morning. What happens to your lunch has a little different meaning for a plant, I guess. So here we go in our last unit 3, unit photosynthesis. So here we have some general kind of stuff. We are capturing energy for use in biological processes, right? Energy from the sun to produce really lots of different kinds of organic molecules, but first they're going to be carbohydrates, monosaccharides, therefore sugars, all right? So photosynthesis evolved very early. So did all the biochemistry. Prokaryotes invented all of that. This is in the evolution kind of category, so I don't know if they're going to throw this in there. But so the oxygen in the atmosphere came from photosynthesizers. That's also a evolution kind of thing. So let's get to it. So here back in Unit 2 in cells, they said some words that they didn't say here, but they apply quite a bit. I mean, didn't say in the syllabus in Unit 3. So you need to know, right, that these grana is a stack of thylakoids. A thylakoid is like a little membranous thing, kind of looks like a chloroplast, right, itself. And that's a thylakoid, just one of them. Stacked on top of each other, you have that stack called a grana. Okay, so then you have grana, thylakoids. The chlorophyll is in these membranes. That's why I made the pen green today, right? They comprise photosystems. That's coming up. All of this stuff was in Unit 2, right? The light-dependent reactions, the ones that depend on light, occur in these membranes, right? The stroma then is the fluid that surrounds these membranes, and this is where the cycle called the Calvin-Benson cycle occurs, and that key event here called carbon fixation, which is the synthesis part of photosynthesis, right? So they identify here in the last unit where these things happen that they talk about in more detail in this unit. So here they have a little thing about pigments. Now this is a kind of thing that they call an illustrative example of some kind of concept stuff. So why does the fact that plants have different pigment molecules, the molecules that absorb light, why would that be good for a plant, right? Because they can absorb more different kinds of light. And they put that in an illustrative example. So, all right, so here we go with the nuts and bolts of it. Um, during photosynthesis, chlorophylls absorb energy, not some other kind of molecule, right? And that energy boosts electrons to a higher energy level in two different photosystems, 1 and 2. Again, these are in the syllabus, and so it's need to know kind of stuff. They're not going to ask you definition wise, but if they put these in a question, they expect you to know them because they use the language in the syllabus here. Okay, so what the light reactions are going to do is really conceptualized in this little diagram really well. You've got two photosystems. You have electrons getting boosted. What's that mean? That means a chlorophyll molecule right in the middle here, a chlorophyll A molecule specifically, is getting so energized, shaken up, that it loses electrons to something else that grabs them. And we have the same thing happening in both of these photosystems. But then what happens to these boosted electrons is a little different, right? These fall down an electron transport chain that pumps protons, and those pumped protons flow back through ATP synthase to make ATP. This is one of the products, yield, right, makes, this is one of the products of the light reactions. And then this is the other product. This is where the other electrons end up. When they get boosted, they get passed to a few different things, but no protons are pumped. What happens to these energized electrons is they end up getting picked up by NAD's cousin NADP, and therefore the energy of the sun now exists in this molecule and this molecule. This light-dependent reactions are the key events that cause that part of photosynthesis, which is the energy capturing part. The other part is the organic molecule making part, but definitely not to miss the boat here on this part. The electrons that came from photosystem two's chlorophyll get replaced by electrons from water molecules. There they are, from water molecules. These water molecules, by giving up their electrons, are split into protons and oxygen. This oxygen is a waste product for photosynthesis, but of course it's a key to life in terms of aerobic respiration. So now here we go with the same kind of thing. So I've said it all. There's just a couple different things here, most notably this creature, which is the exact same molecule as it was in mitochondria, right? Doing the exact same thing. Here you have the electrons going from photosystem 2 to photosystem 1, pumping protons, right? Pumping protons through some of the exact same cytochromes as in that mitochondria. This should suggest that these evolved from each other, actually the respiration one from the photosynthesis one. All right, so here again we see the splitting of water, the release of oxygen. Here we see the capture of this light energy in NADPH and ATP. And here we have the added detail again that in making those ATPs, it involves the play of this ATP synthase as a proton channel and enzyme at the same time catalyzing that reaction. So here they tell you what they need to know. Again, photosystems 1 and 2, they're embedded in the internal membranes. They already told you they want you to know that that's a thylakoid, right? When they're transferred, a proton gradient, and they remind you that hydrogen ion and proton can be used interchangeably, so know that they're the same, is established across this membrane, and the proton gradient is linked to the synthesis of ATP with the help of the ATP synthase. Okay, that's pretty much that whole story, the light reaction story, the light dependent reactions. Now the light independent reactions, otherwise known as the Calvin cycle, which remember they called the Calvin-Benson cycle in that last one. I'm giving Mr. Benson some credit there. That occurs in the stroma, to say that again, right? And here's the words we like: beyond the scope of the course, the memorization of steps, like you see here, beyond the scope of the course. So what do they want you to know? They want you to know that the energy from these two molecules that were produced in the light-dependent reactions is going to power the production of carbohydrates. What do you make carbohydrates with? Carbon dioxide, right? Another basic component of the reactants of photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water, the water we saw in the light-dependent reactions, right? So that means, again, solar energy now captured in these two molecules, this molecule and this, and another dose of that, is going to end up in an organic molecule that's a carbohydrate. That's all they ask you to identify it is as a carbohydrate. Remember, we said specifically this is the carbohydrate, which can be considered the product of photosynthesis. When this is used to make glucose, for instance, it becomes then glucose in the formula, right? Glucose and oxygen are produced from carbon dioxide and water, right? Don't get too far away from this basic formula, right? Here's where the glucose can come from. Literally not part of photosynthesis, but another little set of reactions that takes this G3P and makes glucose out of it. Enough of that. Okay, so here we have a comparison, finally, that, and I brought back some parts of the syllabus. Electron transport chain reactions occur in chloroplast and mitochondria, and if you're a little prokaryote, right, you simply have protons being pumped out of you and then flowing back in through these ATP synthases, and you can do all this stuff just the same. You just don't have compartments, right? Like these two things do, where the protons are pumped from one compartment to another. Your other compartment is the great outside world. All right. But they tell you, they want you to know that this stuff occurs in all kinds of different cells, right? And then they want you to know this, right? They want you to know that in cellular respiration, this process of making ATPs, respiration in a mitochondria, is known as oxidative phosphorylation. What's phosphorylation mean? A phosphate being added to something. What something? ADP, right? And in photosynthesis, in a chloroplast, we call this same thing photophosphorylation. They're not going to ask you what these words mean, but they're telling you they might use them in a question, and you are expected to know what they mean. Oh, these are good ones, aren't they? These are solid gold. The internet's such a great thing. So here's a little sunshine for you today. This was this morning. I'm making this on Saturday morning, and this is a good little note here from Mother Teresa, right? Sometimes you feel that some things you're doing just don't make any difference, but everything makes a difference in some way, shape, or form. So I hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. I'm going to start making up the practice question video in a little bit, and I'll see you soon.